Blaming myself 28F for my husband's 28M. I'm really struggling with blaming myself for my husband's affair, him leaving me for the girl he cheated on me with. The girl he left me for, 22F, is everything I wasn't the past couple of months in my relationship. She's fun and sexy, wears skimpy outfits and posts sexy TikToks where she gets tons of attention for being hot. She also has all of his same interests and style. I'm not going to say I'm unattractive, but I dress more for comfort unless I'm going out, and I have a different style from her. My husband told me a month before I think the affair really began about how he wanted more initiative from me in the bedroom and for me to do things I used to do because that made him feel wanted. I agreed and told him I could do better. I've just been tired from work and struggling a bit with depression. This is the first time since COVID I'm working a full-time job, and so we've been on opposite schedules, whereas before I worked from home on my own hours. But he didn't phrase it as if he was so unhappy he wanted to leave. He made sure to mention he wasn't unhappy with our sex life and he still loved me. He just wanted to tell me how he was feeling. I'm now feeling like the affair was my fault, or I pushed him to it because I wasn't meeting his needs since I've been so wrapped up in work, my depression. He would try and initiate sexy conversations or ask for photos, and I wouldn't really reciprocate because I'd be busy or tired. We also had dry spells here and there, but I felt like we always came back to each other and made up for it. I'm also very open to his kinks and quirks and would pretty much try whatever he asked. It's not like we had a boring bedroom. Things got routine, of course, but I thought that was normal for an almost 11-year relationship. There were periods where he wasn't really up for sex either because he was struggling with his weight, self-esteem. But I can't shake the feeling that me getting too comfortable in our relationship pushed him to someone more desirable. Has anyone else struggled with this? Is there ever really an excuse for an affair? I keep telling myself if I was sexier, cook more, didn't let our app go for a little because of my depression and work schedule, then I would still have my husband and he wouldn't have started an affair and left me for another woman. I've always been pretty confident in myself and my relationship with him, and now I've never felt more low in my life. We also only got married 9 months ago and he's already thrown our relationship and me away too easily for something he feels is better. Currently separated, for other reasons, and found out he cheated before we married. Hi. I am copying a post I made for Al-Anon because it fits both and I do not want to retype the post. The info is relevant to both types of support in each sub. New bomb was dropped. My husband and I are in a separation and selling our home. I have the kids full-time. I'm not ready to divorce, and that's okay. I'm allowing myself time to feel my feelings and get out of flight or fight mode. Feel free to see my post history for more backstory. We have been married for 7 years and together for 11. He has been an alcoholic since 2017, the year we were married and had our first, and it's been a steep nosedive since. Every few months he cycles back to relapse, and it's worse each time. He had a short period where he had an emotional affair in 2018. He's been open and honest about that stuff. Not alcohol, since 99% of the emotional affair was done while he was hammered out of his mind. There's a common theme here. He recently dropped a bombshell on me after I saw a list of things he needed to talk to me about from his recent therapy session. I wasn't snooping. I was labeling furniture for sale, storage in our home, and it was sitting on the desk I was labeling. I didn't think I could feel any lower than I do now. He told me our mutual friend and some random girl from a house party in 2014. When we were in college, we were dating for 1.5 to 2 years at this point, gave him oral. He said he was completely drunk and barely remembers that night but knows it happened. This friend of ours is engaged to our friend from childhood, college. We rarely see them but run into them a handful of times per year at weddings and other celebrations for our old circle of college friends. It's a large circle. She's met my children and talked to me tons of times. We had spent time together at these events. I'm feeling. Fast forward from the cheating event to 2017. I noticed he was texting her. I was unaware at this time, but my gut said something was weird with them. They shared maybe 8 to 10 texts. They don't talk or have a personal relationship and never had, aside from the hookup. I asked what they were talking about and he gave me some BS answers and deleted them, which obviously set red flags off in my head. Apparently she reached out to him and felt guilty. He said they both Acknowledged that it was a major mistake and that they were both just about blackout drunk and to never speak of it again. I think she did this because she was about to get engaged to our friend. I'm disgusted and humiliated that this woman and him kept this secret for so long. I would have left had I known. Now we have 2 kids and our lives are so intertwined. She looked me in the eyes how many times over the years and never said a damn thing. Same goes for him. He sobbed when he was telling me about this, and he's been working in therapy and steps to sobriety. He needed to tell me so there's no more lies or secrets. He was absolutely distraught. I actually believe him this time. He said that he thinks that was his catalyst. His dad cheated on his mom and was alcoholic. He's had a fear of becoming his dad, and then that happened when he drank too much and made a poor decision. He said he's felt like a villain ever since, and he's felt so guilty that he's been drowning himself in alcohol and self-harming with alcohol as a way to avoid thinking about how he may be just like his dad. His dad severely traumatized him. I've always thought this childhood had a lot to do with his adult life issues, but he never listened. He's been sober now for a week. I'm not holding my breath, and he seems like a new person. A very sad, but relieved person. He said he didn't really come to terms with how alcohol has been in every negative major life event, choice until the kids and I left him. I don't think he's trying to pity me for staying. He's made it clear that he's not, and he's basically rolled over to his back and submitted and taken any and every reaction I've had. It's funny because I was feeling minutely good about the progress we have made over the last 2 months, but this new revelation tarnishes any and every good memory I was holding on to. Not to mention the sexual aspect of marriage is extremely important to me, and I can never look at him again without picturing their hookup. I swing from feeling relieved because things make more sense to absolutely distraught and angry. Divorce is just about done. I look at myself now and often compare myself to who I was on my first D-Day in April 2021. I still remember the day vividly and how I felt. I had discovered a small bag I had never seen before and curiously thought, where did this come from? I opened it up and my world shattered. Inside was a collection of post-it notes AP had given to my wife at work. Have a good night, beautiful, will think of you all day. Hey, you look beautiful today. Good morning, beautiful. There were about 10 to 15 post-its in the bag, most with some variation of calling my wife beautiful. I stood in our kitchen breakfast nook holding the evidence of my wife's affair in my hands with a pounding in my chest from an overloaded heart that was beating wildly like a frenzied nightclub that had just been set ablaze. I remember the moment so vividly. Everything down to the texture of the notes and how they felt on my fingertips. It's all still fresh and distinct over 2 years afterwards. I remember my mind racing, desperately trying to make sense of what I was looking at, looking for some excuse to explain it all away. Maybe these are from a female coworker. Women sometimes talk like this to each other, right? I thought. It's sometimes tough for me to relive that defining and earth-shattering moment. Sometimes I think about it and find myself getting angry. But oddly enough, that day triggered a dramatic shift in my life. I'm still piecing things together and rebuilding. But I look at who I am today compared to who I was 2+ years ago, and the two people are completely different from each other. I didn't like who I was then, but I like who I am now. I can't believe how far I've come. Every so often I receive a message from someone here asking for an update. The last time I posted any meaningful update was almost a year ago, which can be found in my post history. My divorce is almost finalized. Both me and my STBXW have signed all the necessary papers. The papers have been filed with the court and we are simply awaiting a judge to approve everything. The house has been officially sold as of last week. We are essentially finished. There's nothing more for us to do but wait for a judge to approve the divorce. The path getting to this point was quite tumultuous. My STBXW behaved like a screaming child that I had to drag through the whole process and force her to finally agree to the proposed stipulation of settlement agreement and to sell the house. But even as she began cooperating with the process, I would still receive those drunk texts begging me to go back to her, and when I refused she would turn to rage before eventually returning to the love bomb approach to win me back. Her mood would shift quite dramatically. In a span of 1 week, she went from texting me, "Fuck you. I'm better than you. I can't wait to be divorced from you," to later handwriting me a letter, taking a picture of that letter and texting it to me where she referred to me as a great man and the husband of her dreams. But I did not waver. I stood up to my abuser and told her I was not going to allow myself to be treated like this anymore. And it feels damn good to say I did that. There's a recurring thought I have had in this whole process. I often say to myself, behave in a way that you can be proud of in the future. I wanted to look back at this time and be able to say that I did the right thing, despite that being so very hard to do at times, and despite having every reason to be angry or frustrated. I think about who I want to be as a person on this earth, and I act and make decisions that align with that vision. I want to be someone that upholds integrity and respect for others regardless of their behavior, as destructive as it may be at times. This does not mean outright ignoring such behavior, but addressing it in a productive way and enforcing boundaries. My therapist quoted Hamlet to me once, and it stood out. It's a line I had heard before but never fully dissected it. To thine own self be true. Our response to hardship sets a foundation for who we eventually become as people later in life. My STBXW did a horrible thing, but I do not see her as a horrible person. As someone I shared many happy moments over many years with, I cannot type this with any hatred in my heart or wish ill will on her. I still love her, always will, and wish her all the happiness in the world. She has many struggles, and I hope she finds a way to overcome them. We left things very peacefully between us. After closing on the house we had lunch together and spoke candidly. We cried together, told each other we loved one another and wished the other well. For me it was such a beautiful way to say goodbye. I recall the moment in the parking lot when we hugged, crying as we held each other. I thanked her for being my wife and for giving me so many happy times before the affair. She apologized for her actions and for failing the marriage. We started walking away, holding on to each for as long as possible until the distance was too much and we had to let go. I know most that experienced betrayal would not have done that, but for me it was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. It was a perfect way to say goodbye to each other, with mutual respect, love, and overall on good terms. As for me, I have been quite busy since deciding to leave. I dropped about 50 pounds, although I put 10 back on since my doctor told me I was a tad too skinny. I had previously been a bit on the heavy side many years ago, so overall I've lost about 90 pounds. Unfortunately, I now have some excess skin on my belly that I'm looking into getting surgically removed. But I still exercise regularly. I recently ran my first race and have a 10K coming up later in the September. I joined a kickball league and made lots of new friends through the organization that runs it. We have become close and participate in trivia nights together here and there outside of kickball. I've increased my social circle and even made a close friend through this subreddit that I speak with every day, and it feels so great to be putting myself out there and enjoying new experiences. I have not started dating though, and I'm in no rush for that. I'm not sure when that will come, but I know it will at some point. Truthfully, I'm a bit frightened to start dating, but at the same time I'm kind of looking forward to it. For the moment though, I'm still rebuilding my life the way I want it, and I don't want anything to interfere with my goals. Overall, I'm very happy to report back that I am doing well, and it's because I've put in the hard work to try and be the best version of myself that I've ever been. There are still days where I struggle and feel angry or as though I am grieving, but they are becoming less frequent. If I had stayed, every day would be like that. Leaving was my only option to save myself from becoming a version of myself I never wanted to be. I do hope that this post resonates with those still struggling to move on. I'm always happy to speak with anyone and offer my encouraging insight for those now faced with navigating infidelity, so if you'd like to connect with me, please feel free to shoot me a DM. I will end this post here as it is already quite long, but one last thing. Thank you to everyone who had reached out to me last year or even recently to offer their own advice, or just to check in. This community is absolutely wonderful and served as a valuable resource for me during those dark days. Cheers to a better life.